of the Manitowoc County Board to order. We will start with invocation by Supervisor Wagner, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, we assemble here before Thee to seek Your guidance, direction, and blessings in our deliberations and many decisions we must make this evening. Deliver us from our human frailties and unite our hearts and minds to serve the best interest of the citizens we are here to represent. We ask this in Your name.
Thank you. Roll call is going around. There are 23 supervisors present, and we do have a quorum. Our first item up for action is consideration of last month's meeting's minutes. I see a motion. Motion by Supervisor Engelbrecht, second by Supervisor Bauman. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the minutes are approved. There are no additions to the agenda. That'll take us to our next order of business. We'll be doing a proclamation for June Dairy Month. I'd like to invite the Manitowoc County Dairy Judging Team up to accept the proclamation.
Hello, my name is Angie Alness, UW-Madison Division of Extension Ag Educator for Manitowoc County, and I'm very honored to be here today reading the proclamation for June Dairy Month. Proclaiming the month of June as Dairy Month in Manitowoc County. Whereas agriculture accounts for approximately 7,000 jobs in Manitowoc County and provides annual cash receipts of over $300 million annually, with over 75% attributed to the sale of milk. And whereas Manitowoc County agriculture accounts for a combined total economic impact of over $2 billion per year. And whereas Manitowoc County ranks #1 in Wisconsin counties and is in the top 1% of all counties in the United States in annual milk production. And whereas Manitowoc County's approximately 152 dairy farms and 54,000 dairy cows produced over 1.6 billion pounds of milk in 2022. And whereas Manitowoc County farms pay an average of $48.9 million in sales, property, and income taxes each year. Whereas in celebration of the importance of the dairy industry to Manitowoc County and the dairy youth programming in the county, the 2022 International Youth Dairy Judging Championship team and the next generation of dairy enthusiasts in our county. Now, therefore, we, Bob Ziegelbauer, County Executive, and Tyler Martell, County Board Chairperson, along with the County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the month of June as June Dairy Month in Manitowoc County, dated this 20th day of June 2023. I would also like to introduce, for many of you, we have restructuring within the extension, and we, you're probably familiar with Miss Judith Knudsen, who was our area extension director, and I'm proud to announce that Manitowoc has joined with Calumet and Sheboygan counties in programming, and we have hired a new area extension director, and she's present today at our meeting. Mrs. Jana Hintz.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be part of Area 12 and have wonderful staff here in Manitowoc, Sheboygan, and Calumet County, and I look forward to developing and working with the team.
I would also like to introduce the newly crowned 2023 Manitowoc County Dairy Princess to share a few words.
Hello everyone. As Angie said, I was crowned this year's Manitowoc County Dairy Princess last Sunday at Breakfast on the Farm. My name is Jenna Grease, and I grew up on my family's dairy farm outside of Valders, where we currently milk 325 cows with 5 robots. This fall, I will be a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I am studying dairy science with a certificate in agricultural business management. I've had a very busy first week as Dairy Princess. I helped scoop ice cream at Pine River Dairy to celebrate June Dairy Month. And the outgoing Dairy Princess and I, Clarissa, who is also here, visited Precious Memories Daycare in Whitelaw and read some books about farms, did a craft, and handed out some ice cream. And I also helped present what you're about to see tonight at the Agriculture Committee of the County Board meeting last week. I'm very excited for the rest of my year advocating for our county's dairy industry.
So the main reason that we're here tonight is I also, on the side, coach the Manitowoc County Dairy Judging Team along with Paul Seamers from Newton, Wisconsin. And together, we are very proud to announce that our team consists of Jenna Grease, Emma Voss, Lauren Seamers, and Clarissa Ulness, won the National 4-H Dairy Judging Contest at World Dairy Expo, which qualified them to compete at the 2022 International Highland Show in Scotland, and then they also competed in Ireland. So they're here to tell you a little bit about that activity and how the impact of the community fundraising efforts allow them to have a lifetime, once-in-a-lifetime experience touring Europe.
So, as Angie said, our team consisted of the 4 of us, and we had been judging together for a very long time, probably 8 or 9 years, before we had the chance to compete at the national contest. So it was definitely always something we'd been looking forward to and trying to achieve. We spent a lot of hours and practices and hard work to get there. So we started out by judging at the district contest held in June, and we took second place, which qualified us for state, where we ended up winning the contest and getting to judge at nationals held at World Dairy Expo in Madison. That day we like to call one of the best and worst days of our lives because it was a very long and stressful day, but it all ended up being worth it when we heard how we did at the end. In addition to being the first team overall, we took home a lot of personal awards and breed awards, and it was a great overall accumulation of our hard work as a team, as it was Lauren's last year being eligible for the program. And now we'll talk a little bit more about our trip.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma Voss. I'd just like to first say it was a privilege to get to judge with these ladies who are my best friends and also share the love of cows with me, and also to meet my favorite mentors. So anyways, like Jenna said, we got to go to Scotland first. We toured the city of Edinburgh, where we got to learn all of the history behind all the buildings, and we actually were there the week before the Queen was coming, so that was really interesting to get to hear all of the history behind that and what they were preparing for. After that, there was a lot of driving, but it was very scenic and very different from here in the U.S., and it was a very unique experience. After that, we got to judge at the Royal Highland Show. That was very different from what we were used to. very fast-paced, very efficient, but we got to see a lot of good cows and got to see what they're passionate about and see how the different countries all unite over the dairy cow and the dairy industry. After that, we got to go tour the show. It was really interesting to see how many American genetics were there. In fact, we saw multiple cattle influenced by bulls put out by the Seamers family. That was very, very cool to see. After that, we did a lot more tourist things. We went to the St. Andrews and Turnberry golf courses. That was really unique because there's American influences there, such as Donald Trump and also Kohler, which is right in our backyard, pretty much. And then we got to tour the origin of where Ayrshires came from. There we toured a farm called Brierside Ayrshires, which they're a mix between Holsteins and Ayrshires, and they actually use a fair amount of American genetics, but they're able to teach us what they value in their cows, and it was very different. And especially when it came to facilities, they do a lot more pasture-based, whereas here in the U.S., we do a lot more free stalls or stall barn facilities. After that, we went to Ireland, and I think Clarissa is going to share more about our experience over in Ireland.
So like Emma said, my name is Clarissa Alness, and I'll be talking about our second half of our trip where we went to Ireland. And since the trip was a little shorter than normal in years past, they would kind of go to a couple other countries where we would judge a different contest. So they found a show, kind of like what we would consider a county fair in Ireland, and we got to judge that. So that was a fun little surprise in our trip, and it was really cool just to see how they have their animals out on the grass, kind of have little tents for them, and it was kind of in a valley, so it was hills around us. It was very scenic, and it was just a different feeling, and it was cool to see how their county fair is a little bit different than ours. And the ribbon up on the trifold folding display is what we received at that contest. I don't what was that? First place for the contest. We had to judge beef there as well, so that was something that we don't really have experience with, but had fun trying to do in the short amount of time we had. And then we had quite a few tour stops and farms as well in Ireland. And so we toured and got to see the Blarney Castle and wool mills. So that was kind of interesting to see how sheep are such a big part of Ireland and Scotland, and we got to see the different wool that they made. There was a huge, beautiful store full of sweaters and different clothing items, but we also got to climb up the stairs to the Blarney Castle and kiss the Blarney Stone. So that was something interesting that we got to do. And then I guess we got to tour a lot of farms that were out on pasture. There's a few pictures on the other side there that have us standing in the field. It was really beautiful to see the cows out, and we got to learn a lot about how they do their pasture raising and grazing, and then as well as seasonal calving, which is a little bit different than here in the United States. And then we got to see different milking operations and facilities on the different farms, and also got to see a couple different breeds, mostly Holsteins, but there were some Ayrshires and then Holstein Friesian cattle as well. And then we finished our trip in London for a couple days, and that was a little bit more of a relaxed part of our trip. As we didn't really have to follow our itinerary, we kind of got to tour as we pleased, and we didn't have to be with a group. So us five all kind of just walked around London. We started our trip on a bus tour, and so we kind of got to figure out where we wanted to go on foot the next day. And so we got to see Big Ben. We rode the London Eye, toured Kensington Palace, got pictures in front of Buckingham Palace, walked around like Piccadilly Circus, and ate a lot of really good food. So we filled our day with as much walking as possible, and even got a couple rides on the underground as well. So, yeah, I guess for us, I can say that we all really had a amazing experience. And me personally, I can't believe it's been pretty much a year since we left. And I think that it's all given us something that's made us into a more like rounded person. And we all really like to talk about it and look back on pictures together. So I would like to thank you guys for all of your support for all of us and everything that you guys do for the Manitowoc County youth. And Lauren will be talking about that now.
Gotta raise the microphone a little bit. I had a little bit of height to the group. As Clarissa said, my name is Lauren Seamers, and I was the oldest member of the team. For us, dairy judging was really a way that we grew closer together. It's an activity that all of us competed in for more than 10 years before we ultimately won the national contest and were able to go on this trip. For us, it was really amazing to see how much the community showed up for us. A trip of this magnitude was not very accessible and not very funded by National 4-H, but our community really helped us out with sponsorship and fundraising, and so that was really cool to see, and something that we're also grateful for, because there's no way we would have been able to go without that. And dairy judging is something that brought us all enthusiasm for Manitowoc County's dairy industry and agriculture industry, and that's enthusiasm that we're able to bring back as now we try and be volunteer assistant coaches for the county dairy judging program and make as many practices as we can so that hopefully we can have successful teams in the future that are able to have similar experiences. So I want to thank you all so much for supporting Manitowoc County's dairy industry and for listening to what we have to say. And hopefully in a few years, we'll have another team here presenting a very similar story. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Well, that was great. I think being on the county board, being a supervisor who lives in the city myself, I didn't know a whole lot about Manitowoc County Dairy, but I think we've all learned a lot about the magnitude that dairy has on our county, just being on the county board. I want to thank Supervisor Wagner for helping me invite the dairy judging team to be here with us, and thank you again for sharing your experience with us. Next we have a report on the courthouse dome project by the county executive.
Thank you. The Courthouse Dome and Facility Improvement Committee has met a couple of times. We have posted on our website frequently asked questions. We delivered that to you last meeting, but if you need one, I've got a couple of copies. But we keep this up to date, and as more information becomes available, we'll post it on the website. The Courthouse Dome Committee has recommendations to the Public Works Committee, but now they're looking at funding. One of the things that they're talking about, or people are talking about, is the sales tax. The optional county sales tax adds 0.5% to the state sales tax, a 10% increase. My theory, my philosophy is to deliver excellent services in local government, taking as little from the taxpayers as we can. The sales tax is oppressive and cruel. It's a regressive tax that hurts the most with lower incomes. Taking too much in a short time for this project is another facet of this. 4 or 5 times as much as the property tax. Keeping this project on a few who can afford it the least for a big tax increase is not the way to go. And the sales tax will last forever. Enacting the sales tax would be the biggest tax increase in the history of Manitowoc County. Think about that. The biggest tax increase in the history of Manitowoc County. But there is a better option. The courthouse dome is a capital asset. The project should be financed by future taxpayers over a long period of time. Taxpayers can pay for this project, stretching it out on the property tax for 20 or 25 years for a nominal increase. 15 years ago, we borrowed $15 million to build the Joint Dispatch Center and the C&T building and rebuild our radio facilities and our radio towers. We held the line on taxes. Taxes didn't go up because we promised and fulfilled that promise to taxpayers. We can do it again. And the property tax and borrowing will make use of significant federal and state subsidies. Borrowing is less than the market rates, about 1.25% or 1.5% below the market rates, because federal interest isn't taxable, and we get a lower rate for that. The property tax is deductible for the taxpayers. Sales tax is rarely deductible. The property tax generates a state of Wisconsin tax credit for taxpayers. The magnitude of the property tax for this project is a one-time 1.5 or 2.5% increase on the property taxes. But it can be less. With good management, we demonstrated that before. The sales tax is a long-term harm for a short-term need. We don't need the sales tax to do this project. We can do this and hold the line on taxes at the same time. The county board will have the final decision, and I rely on you to be engaged and understand the implications of this. On the flip side of my handout is a summary of our financial position, and it's taken with the guide of the finance director, and it shows how we're strengthening our financial position over the last 15 years. We have a stronger financial position, and we did almost $110 million of capital projects through the last 17 years, and we held the line on taxes. So it's a big project we're thinking about, but it will not overwhelm us, and we can do this and hold the line on taxes and be responsible to the taxpayers. I urge you not to go to the sales tax, because that will last forever, and it will be a long-term harm on our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do just want to remind everybody that the Courthouse Advisory Courthouse Dome Advisory Committee will be meeting next week on Wednesday, June 28th at 5:30 in the Emergency Services Building. So if you're interested in being a part of that discussion on the financing for the Courthouse Dome project, I encourage you to attend. Next, we will go to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak tonight? Any members of the public who wish to speak? Yes, Ms. Yost?
Good evening. I'll begin with a PSA that will interest each of you supervisors, as well as our community's local elected officials and residents. Quoting, Governor Tony Evers today signed Assembly Bill 245, now 2023 Wisconsin Act 12, relating to shared revenue, one of the most significant sources of funding provided by the state to local governments. Governor Evers and Republican leaders negotiated to reach a compromise on shared revenue that includes at least a 20% increase in support to most municipalities statewide and ties local government funding to the state sales tax going forward, allowing for growth in the future. The new total Manitowoc County and municipal aid amount is $15.4 million. County Executive Ziegelbauer wrote on page 8 of the 17-page Courthouse Dome FAQ that, quote, enacting the sales tax would be the highest tax increase in history of Manitowoc County. I asked him to explain how he calculated to reach that conclusion. He responded that I should look at page 33 of the 2023 adopted budget book. It contains a listing of our county's, quote, equalized value, tax levy, and tax rate history, 1977 to 2022, actuals, and 2023 adopted, close quote. When we do that, we see that since 2014, each year, save one, of the tax levy has decreased. But that is only part of the story. During Ziegelbauer's tenure of 2006 through 2023, Manitowoc County's fixed asset spending totaled $109 million for land and land improvements, buildings and building improvements, infrastructure, equipment, vehicles, and miscellaneous. Under his leadership, $38 million in principal was borrowed for those ordinary, customary county expenses, or 34% of the $109 million total. It appears that Ziegelbauer has been keeping the tax levy low by indebting the smallest subset of our county's total population, the property taxpayers, more than a decade into the future. Also keep in mind that he speaks in terms of principal borrowed without interest, which obscures the actual total cost to the property taxpayers. I continue to advocate for the half cent on a dollar spent countywide sales tax. Borrowing at 4+% is much more expensive than paying that to fund our county expenses. And so, as I have said so many times before, I continue to advocate for a quote half cent on a dollar spent countywide sales tax, as quote the borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:17. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Any other members of the public looking to speak? For a third and final time, I will close public input and then I'll take us into appointments by the county executive. The first is to the Board of Adjustment for an appointment to reappoint Dave Crystal and Robert Somm for 3-year terms expiring in July of 2026. I'd be looking for a motion to approve those appointments. Motion by Supervisor Hanson, second by Supervisor Niles. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the appointments are approved. Next is for 3 members to succeed Jamie Zastrow, Adam Teagan, and Elizabeth Runge for 1-year terms that expire next July. They are being reappointed to the Northeast Wisconsin Regional Economic Partnership. I'd be looking for a motion. Motion by Supervisor Hanson, second by Supervisor Engelbrecht. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And those appointments are approved. Next is to reappoint Mary Mink to a 7-year term to the Planning and Park Commission. I'd be looking for a motion. Motion by Supervisor Marsh, second by Supervisor Falkowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion approved. Next is for the Transportation Coordinating Committee. We have 2 appointments. One is for Ronald Shannon to fill a vacancy that expires in April 2024. And the second is for Heather Eilenfeld to fill a vacancy expiring April of 2026. I'd be looking for a motion on those. Supervisor Hacker, second by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And those appointments are approved. That'll take us into committee reports. First up is Planning and Park Commission. Supervisor Falkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more of an announcement. The next Park and Planning Commission is June 26th, starting with the Advisory Committee at 3:30 and the meeting at 4 p.m. That is the end of my report.
Thank you. Aging and Disability Board, Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Chairman Martel. The ADRC, their next meeting will be July 25th, and it will be held up in Kewaunee County at 10 a.m. That's the end of that report.
Thank you. Supervisor Mesker, Board of Health.
We met on June 8th. The department is going to have a 140 review kickoff meeting, which is scheduled for June 26th. At 23, we're at a level 2, and we're going to go to a level 3, and we need a strategic plan for that. We got a work development grant extended through 2024 for preventative health and services. It's a block grant, and funds will support organizational improvements. Then we got the community preparedness update, and we're taking part in the nuclear drills starting in June, including training, practice, and full evaluation. We're also planning for mass flu clinic exercises for schools this fall. We are getting a Narcan vending machine. It was a grant for $25,000. It costs $8,000 for the machine, and we're going to probably have it at Econo Lodge for rent, and we have to pay rental fee plus the Narcan stuff that we need for it. We also got a public health infrastructure grant for $259,000 to use through the end of 2027. It's to increase the capacity, supporting hiring, retaining, and training staff. The manager report, COVID-19 and chlamydia remains the highest reported diseases in May. The 7-day average for COVID-19, 1 case a day, 3 more deaths reported since last meeting. The total is 224. Environmental health, we are renewing about 800 licenses. The WIC program, April was 984 participants, 597 families. The contracted goal is 934, so we are above that. The farmers market for the WIC program has started June 1st, And our next meeting is August 10th at 5 p.m. That is the end of my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Metzger. Next is the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, Supervisor Falkowski.
Mr. Chairman, there is no report for this month.
Thank you. There's nothing to report for the Executive Committee, so we'll go to the Expo Ice Center Board, Supervisor Sikowitz.
Thank you. The Expo Ice Center Board met on Wednesday, June 7th. The Finance and Operations Subcommittees had brief meetings before the regular board meeting. The Finance Subcommittee recommended a one-time payment relief of $500 each for the 4 vendors who provide musical entertainment at the fair. The board acknowledged that of the rising costs and providing quality entertainment and what these groups provide at the fair at no cost to Manitowoc County. This good faith gesture was approved unanimously for this year and will be reviewed again next year. The Operations Subcommittee recommended moving the release time on Sunday of the fair to 4:30 p.m. for the market animals. This recommendation will allow for a safer and more efficient load-out process and was approved unanimously by the board. The Ice Center Operations Working Group reported the hockey and figure skating groups have held several meetings during this off-season and have a fundraising campaign in progress to replace the ice resurfacer. The annual county fair billboard contest between the county's 4-H groups has started, and several Expo board members will be traveling across the county in July to judge the billboards. The Entertainment Committee's working group met regarding the Midway layout for food vendors. The Midway will be full again, and several new food vendors at this year's fair. This year's Fairest of the Fair, Emma Dvorak, has already appeared at several events and parades and attended Breakfast on a Farm on June 11th at the Expo board booth. This season's capital projects are in full swing with a lot of activity happening on the grounds. The new music pavilion building project is progressing nicely, with this new structure expected to be completed by August 1st. The County Highway Department has completely rebuilt Horse Barn Road from the Merchants Gate to the East Main Gate. Several site drainage projects are also being completed by our Highway Department this summer. The next Expo Ice Center Board meeting will be scheduled for July 5th at the Expo office. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Supervisor Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Finance did not meet for a lack of things we had to complete, but we will be meeting on July 10th. And the second Monday. That was my question we are supposed to meet on the second Monday, which is the 10th, and we are going to discuss the sales tax, how to fund the project. And I would like to then coordinate with Public Works to bring that together. So you're saying the Wednesday, the 12th, is when they're meeting, okay? So we will move finance. It might be both. We will meet on the 10th, and we will have a discussion on the sales tax and the bonding for this project. There are supervisors who would like to look at that sales tax, so we'll look at it. And we will lean on Peter to help us answer some questions on that. And the reason I state that, and not to discuss now, but we are entering a very important project, and we need to fund that project, and we need to make sure that the taxpayers know how we're funding it and how it's going to be funded for the period of time to pay for it. So that's why we're going to lean on Peter to see what we can do and what we can't do, and come up, as the executive stated, and as we feel, I'm sure everybody sitting here, we can come up with the best method to pay the fixing of the courthouse. So the 10th at 4:30, and we'll work out the details with Public Works, and if we can do it in one night, or if we have to do it in two, we'll do it in two. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Hanson. Next, we'll go to Highway Committee, Supervisor Giroux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Highway met June 13th at 4 o'clock. We discussed a speed limit change from County Trunk Highway R to County Trunk Highway P, the city limits, and referred that to Traffic and Safety Committee for review. We reviewed and discussed operations at the airport. We talked about 5 liners installed on 2 different projects. The County C and County J projects are complete, and we started County Trunk Highway B a week ago. We reviewed and discussed the overtime report, and we approved payment of the vouchers. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Droll. Human Services Board, Supervisor Bry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next Human Services Board meeting will be this Thursday, 15 p.m. at the Human Services Board, Human Services Department office on J Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Land Conservation and the UW Extension Education and Agriculture Committee, Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you, Chairman Martell. The Land Conservation Committee's next meeting will be July 20th at the County Office Complex at 4:45. The UW Extension Education and Agricultural Committee met last week, and Laura Applebeck, Extension Food-Wise Coordinator, introduced a panel of youth that advocate for community health. The group started working together in 7th grade, and currently the majority graduated from high school this year. This group of youth work to improve community by working with local farmers market to collect remaining produce after the market. They surveyed the interest of vendors to find out what they do with leftover produce. The vendors shared that they'd rather donate than cart it back home. Most of the leftover produce was also taken from the farmers market to the Southfield townhouses for their marketing projects. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Wagner. Personnel Committee, Supervisor Marsh.
Thank you. The Personnel Committee met before the meeting, or the county board meeting tonight, because otherwise our meeting would have landed on July 4th, and I didn't think we wanted to meet on July 4th. Anyway, so we met before this meeting and discussed and passed the resolution that we'll be bringing to the county board regarding the salary for the next term for the county board supervisors. And the discussion and the resolution is that the salary would stay the same as it is right now. We also discussed and passed a salary adjustment for emergency dispatchers, and also discussed the Sheriff's Department emergency management recruitment. We're hoping that with the salary adjustments that we will bring us more in line with the surrounding counties to recruit more people for in the emergency dispatch division. Our next meeting will be August 1st at 4:30, and that ends my report.
Thank you very much. Public Safety Committee, Supervisor Falkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee met on June 14th. The meeting opened normally, and we had offered an opportunity for public comment. First on our agenda, we discussed the resolution for updating our hazard mitigation plan for emergency management. The resolution before us today is for authorizing the acceptance of the hazard mitigation plan update grants. This is prudent in order to stay current. We reviewed the content and voted in approval unanimously. Appropriately, I so move to consider and to accept Resolution 2023 authorizing the acceptance of the hazard mitigation plan updates grant.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Mink. Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution authorizing acceptance of hazard mitigation plan update grants.
Motion carries.
For department reports, Sheriff Hartwick presented the report for all components of the department. I'll address the broad topics for our meeting, but recommend that you actually read the minutes for more details. Under administration, the likelihood of adjusting the fee structure for the department will be presented in a future meeting. The budget looks good, primarily because the staffing has improved. Large projects for 2023, the conference room is complete. It's a modern update for the 30-year-old equipment that was in there. Deploying of new sidearms for optics for the entire agency. Under training, deputies are going through their sidearm qualifications. K-9 legal updates for both handlers. Mobile Field Force instructor will bring a regional course to Manitowoc on an operator's level. There will be a crisis intervention team training for staff. Also, Division of Criminal Investigations for human trafficking. Executive Leadership Institute course through the FBI hosting in Manitowoc. Manitowoc Sheriff's Office and the Manitowoc PD is hosting the annual K-9 Handlers Association in September. Also in September, they're hosting the Operation Rush Conference. The sheriff attended the Federal Law Enforcement Training Leadership Academy, which is VISA, the U.S. Marshal Services training. Under operations, Lieutenant Jost is transferring to bailiff. Recruitment process is now open. We anticipate 8 openings this next year. Hoping for better lateral transfer agreement and academy sponsoring. However, this is not looking as a strong metric at this moment. We have been fully staffed on the operations side of the office for a year and a half, but forecasting of that will probably not continue. The notable detective cases in our county is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received several tips coming in and are under investigation. Sextortion cases are starting to hit Manitowoc County. Scams, primarily Bitcoin and grandparent scams, are active. For jail staffing, opening recruitment process continues. Currently, we are one position light. 2 personnel are leaving this month, 1 out of state and the other took a position with the Manitowoc PD. There was a promotion with Justin Dunn, promoted from corrections officer to sergeant. Metro drug updates. In the last several months, 2 federal convictions on 2 local subjects for fentanyl distribution were sentenced. A conviction for meth distribution and felony firearm possession received a 9-year federal sentence. There was a grand jury indictment for a large quantity of meth cases with seizure, and another grand jury indictment for a Milwaukee subject arrested in Manitowoc County and a seizure of narcotics. Metro follow-up in Milwaukee resulted in an additional drug seizure and firearms seized. The U.S. Marshal Task Force officer member has made 64 arrests since January 1st. The committee changed location to conduct a jail inspection at this time, along with the County Board Supervisor Hacker and Shimolos, who accepted the invitation to directly see the corrections operation. Our inspection under the Wisconsin statute did confirm the safe and healthy corrections operations in our county. The findings were submitted and found no anomalies, a credit to the operation. The committee extended their appreciation to the sheriff for their detailed briefing and the steadfast challenge and the risk the department faces about safety and the well-being in our county. The jail inspection and the staff also deserve accolades for serving the county with the professionalism, diligence, well-mannered, and composure carrying out these duties for us. We adjourned at 6:37 p.m. No meeting is scheduled currently for July, and our next meeting is planned and will be in August 9th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public Works Committee, Supervisor Droll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Public Works met June 14th at 4 o'clock. We approved the donation tracker report and the ethics code report. There was no public comment. We reviewed and discussed the solid waste and recycling division. We discussed the Clean Sweep program, which was held May 19th and 20th. There were 435 households and 24 farms and businesses participating this year. We approved the pay requests for capital projects, one for Hammond Construction for $128,839 for the Courthouse Child Support Agency and Branch 4 remodeling project. We approved a pay request for $20,000 for Schaus Mechanical for the courthouse heat exchanger project, and another $30,000 for Schaus Mechanical for the Law Enforcement Center computer room air conditioning unit replacement. We reviewed the Dome project and the ad hoc committee recommendations and approved those recommendations out of Public Works. We reviewed and discussed the Communications Division and the Information Technology Division and the updates on the cybersecurity initiatives. We reviewed and discussed expo activities and the Fairest. We had a Fairest of the Fair proclamation, and we raised the winter storage rates out the expo from $15 a foot to $20 a foot, and we haven't raised them in 5 years, and we're definitely under market rates for those. I'm introducing a resolution 2023-2024-14 amending the weapons policy. I so move.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Supervisor Sikowitz. Any discussion? Supervisor Nadel?
I guess one question I have as far as this resolution, what concerns me is I think it brings up a bigger topic as far as security on some of the county buildings. And I think just putting a sign on the door kind of makes a soft target of the building. That's my only concern with it. You know, I don't know if there's any other, you know what I mean? It's just.
The reason that weapons policy was discussed and put into effect originally was because the people at the health department have some patients that have mental issues and are felt to be more likely to be a problem than other places. And at that time, there was discussion that we felt other buildings like this, that it wasn't necessary, and we really haven't had any issues. So
That's my main concern of employees working there. You know, I'm on the board there, and I've often wondered how these people deal with some of these people if they become violent. I guess that's my concern. So it's just something I wanted to bring up, that I think putting a sign on the door kind of makes it easier for someone to do something if they don't know the outcome, you know what I mean? So that's all I'm trying to say, I guess.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Nadel, Supervisor Falkowski, and then I have Supervisor Bry.
A general question. I noticed that on this list, like in the C&T building, you have to have a key card to get into the building, so it's relatively secured. The Human Services Department, I think, is equally protected from that regard. I was curious with the county complex, office complex. We conduct our planning and park there, and I don't think that's as secured as the other buildings. But what's interesting, I think, is my question is this building where we meet, is that considered a government building which restricts from carried permits? No.
This is obviously it's a government building. Concealed carry is not prohibited in this building. Again, to reiterate Supervisor Droll, I believe the idea behind the buildings that are identified was to keep it as limited as possible. There are certain statutory buildings that are prohibited. For example, the sheriff's department, the jail, as well as the courtrooms themselves. Beyond that, there are certain security concerns with Human Services itself. Human Services itself is, I think, highly interested in having the concealed, or the prohibition on concealed carry And I think it helps, if nothing else, helps them to feel a little bit more secure.
Complexes being included in this list for zoning, it can get contentious every once in a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Falkowski. Supervisor Bry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad Supervisor Giroux brought up the initial discussion we had several years ago about in regards to buildings, but, you know, things change, and ultimately, you know, we're here right now. You know, something could happen right now. God forbid it ever does happen, but I guess one thing that I guess we have going for, especially with our complexes and our buildings downtown, is that we have quick access to Manitowoc, City of Manitowoc Police Department, and the Sheriff's Department for that matter. If there is a incident, we do have quick response times there, so I will support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bry. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will conduct the vote.
Supervisors will now vote on the resolution amending weapons policy.
And the motion is approved. Transportation Coordinating Committee, Supervisor Hacker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next meeting of the Transportation Coordinating Committee is July 26th in this building, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. That concludes our business. I only have one announcement, that our July meeting will be on July 18th at 6 o'clock. Seeing no other discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Giroux, second by Supervisor Falkowski.